r/ask Reddit. Doctors of Reddit. What's the biggest case of faking it you've ever seen? 30-year-old woman came to the ED with such excruciating belly pain. Paralyzed. Oh god, it hurts when you press there. Must have oxycodone now. ED doc said if she can get out of the ED bed and do 20 jumping jacks, we can give her the oxy. She did 20 jumping jacks, then got kicked out of the ED. Doctor should get a side gig as a personal trainer. Haha, just some personal trainer tempting all their clients with drugs and then taking it away at the last second. It. Letter. My mom's a nurse and she said once some crazy lady came in and complained that she had the whooping cough, and whenever she coughed she followed it with a loud woo-oo-oo-p. She's doing it wrong. That's a coughing whoop. Exactly. The right way is to whoop before you cough. Hoop cow. My cousin got glasses. Her 7-year-old little sister also wanted glasses because she thought it was so cool to wear them. So she started telling her teachers she couldn't read what was on the chalkboard, and she'd squint at home and go incredibly close to the TV to watch things because she said she couldn't see things clearly. Her parents got worried and took her to the doctor. She read everything wrong on the vision test. Everyone seemed convinced that she needed glasses, but the doctor was a little concerned because the tests indicated she needed really thick glasses, and usually that wasn't the case unless there was a family history of vision issues. Her parents both had 20/20 vision and her sister only had astigmatism. They all realized she was faking it, so the doctor told her parents in front of her that she'd need some pretty intense eye surgery so she'd be able to see without glasses. They even wheeled in a machine to make it convincing to say they could do the surgery right then and there. She freaked out, confessed to faking it all and started to cry. She got grounded for a while. I remember I faked it when my brother got glasses because I thought they were cool. Turns out I actually needed glasses. They found an astigmatism in my eyes. Who knew? Turns out I actually needed glasses. They found an astigmatism in my eyes. Who knew? He never knew I needed glasses. I mean, how am I supposed to know what the world looks like to other people? Then I was amazed that I could see every detail of a tree. Edit. Just going to disable inbox replies. I love that you've all had similar experiences, but I'm on the spectrum and I've got to read every single reply that comes into my inbox, which is exhausting. But also, woo, we can all see clearly now. I'm an IQ and a nurse. We get a lot of malingering in the air. One day, one of our frequent flyers came in and started faking a seizure in Tridge. Now obviously I know this lady and she's fake seized a million times before, but this time it's in the lobby in front of about 30 people who have no way of knowing that it's fake. She's lolling around on the floor making a damn fool of herself and folks look horrified. I walked up to her and said calmly, "Karen, what are you doing?" To which this genius responds, "I'm seizing." I told her to stop seizing, so she did. Edit. No, her name wasn't actually Karen. I just did that for confidentiality. Oh man, would love to have seen the face of all those people watching this unfold. That doctor is a miracle worker. Had a patient when I was an intern feigning blindness. She would constantly be playing on her smartphone, only furiously trying to hide it when someone from the care team came into her room. The best was when my attending one day strolled past her room and threw his hand up in a highly exaggerated hello wave. She started to throw her arm up but caught herself halfway through, then threw her hand back into her lap and pretended to be staring off into nothing. A friend of mine likes to stick out her hand for a handshake when people come in feigning blindness. Nearly all of them instinctively meet her handshake. It's great to watch. Edit. I am very much aware of the different types of visual deficits. Thanks for your concern. How often does that happen? What is the patient trying to achieve? When I was a kid I learned I could fake sick and get out of school. So 1-2 days a week I would get a migraine and hold my head and complain and I would get to go home. Eventually my parents took me to a neurologist who said maybe you just don't let him eat chocolate and sugar. I admitted to faking and was grounded for a long time. I grew up the opposite way. I would get 3-4 migraines a week, but everyone thought I was faking it because most days I seemed fine, just because I was learning how to deal with them and try to act normal. It wasn't until 8 years after they started that I went to a neurologist who said I have chronic migraines, which I dealt with unmedicated for 16 years. Now I'm on medication. I feel like my childhood was wasted. Edit. I've replied to a lot of you nice people, but I'm on mobile and it will only load like 200 replies and I can't view any more to reply on. But I like reading your responses. Much love to you all. I also get regular migraines, but the doctor said I was too young. I was like 7 or 8 the first time I got one, and it wasn't until I was a teenager that anyone believed me. Medication doesn't work, but at least I know they're real. Editing to add, I've been on multiple medications, diets, health plans over the last 15 years. Medical cannabis isn't legal in my state, and my youthful indulgences were less than positive. Turns out I'm someone who gets real sad when she's high. Everyone else would be so chill and I'd sob for hours. The closest thing to a pattern that can be discerned is changing weather or barometric air pressure related, though migraines also happen at other times. So the doctor suggested moving somewhere with a mild, stable climate, like San Diego or Honolulu, which is not really feasible for me right now, and I react badly to the tryptophan family of medicine, which is often prescribed for migraines. I've taken 2, and both times I have severe side effects of throat and muscle tightness that made it difficult to breathe. The second time, the doctor just said I shouldn't ever take triptans again. Woman shrugging. Ophthalmology technician. People pretend to be blind all the time. Go to check their eye pressure with a Tonopon, a device you poke them directly into the eye with, and they go, what the duck is that thing? I have a sort of opposite angle story for this one. A friend of mine is completely blind, as in, eyes removed as a toddler blind. She had a rare cancer. She's worn glass eyes her whole life to keep the sockets from sinking in, as well as to limit the jarring appearance. Well, she had a new doctor she was seeing, so to speak, to get fitted for new glass eyes. I think that was why, when the tech brought her in, they told her they had to examine her eyes, and asked her to read the vision test chart. She kept trying to explain she is blind, and they were stuck on examining her. Whoa, your pupils aren't responding. No shit. She finally got so frustrated, she popped one glass eye out and said, here, now you can check it out all you want. She apparently always would pull that gag on folks doubting her and or teasing her. She's awesome that way. Edit. Whoa. Stepped away for some dinner and came back to find this comment about my badass friend getting a flood of upvotes. She will love that. A few details. I don't know much more about this story as she was telling a series of oh my god are you serious encounters she's had during her life. And this was my favorite. Open bracket. Second favorite is probably the cop who showed up unexpectedly at her house. Turns out the call was for next door, and insisted she had to be high as hell because her pupils were dilated in bright light. Yes, this was definitely a tech and not the doctor, and yes, her glass eyes are amazingly realistic and I had no idea at first. She also endures regular bullshit for her guide dog, S. She's on her 3rd or 4th I think now. A very large and sweet German Shepherd I want to pet so bad but can't just yet. He's too friendly with strangers. That's great normally, but she doesn't want to be yanked across the room sidewalk street because he wants to be your new best friend. She got serious flack at an airport. One to say was Denver, way back pre 9/11 because at the time they were insisting the dog couldn't go on the plane with her. That made her miss her flight. Ugh. She has sworn never, ever to go through that airport again. And now people with pseudo support dogs really piss me off because their little untrained Perth riding puffballs lose their shit barking and launching at a 100-pound shepherd that spent years getting certified. Edit 2. Thank you for the silver. Did they do it not believe her about her eyes? That's so crazy, but I guess I hear of medical people not believing people all the time or missing something on a chart. The obvious shit like unexplainable pain needing pain meds is sorta reasonable to sometimes have a little doubt, but to just automatically not believe people seems so strange to me. Edit. I'm guessing from some responses I've gotten it's more of a mistake or not reading a chart more than disbelief. Also reworded my comment a little. When I was a kid, I would plan my sick days way ahead of time. Had an old thermos that I would pour leftover milk, meat, whatever, leave it on the windowsill in my bedroom just letting it fester for a month. Open bracket. Of course the thermos was closed so no smells escaped. I set an alarm for the middle of the night, dumped the contents of the thermos on my rug and ran in to tell my dad I was throwing up and so sick. However, this thermos monstrosity filled the entire condo up with horrible smells, and both me and my dad ended up puking into the tub at the same time every time we tried to clean up the rug. He had to take the day off work too. Needless to say, I never pulled that again. I was worried you were going to drink it in order to make yourself sick. Thank goodness that is not what happened. I'm not that big of a monster, just a normal gremlin. Years ago I had a patient who had been rear-ended in an auto accident a few weeks before I saw her. She had a history of lupus. She was decked out in the usual I'm crippled paraphernalia: crutches, neck brace, elbow braces, wrist braces, knee braces, and could barely walk. I saw her a couple of times and she showed no improvement. One Saturday I was on call but had to take a back streets route to the hospital because of an event taking place on the main thoroughfare. I apparently drove through her neighborhood because, wonders behold, there she was wearing old lady spandex power walking down the sidewalk, holding weights in both hands. I did not call out to her. Next week, she was back in clinic with her I'm crippled get up on again. A few weeks later I got the subpoena for the deposition, and it all became clear. What did you do at that point? We need part 2 of this story. I could not have sworn, under oath, that I had absolutely positively identified the woman power walking. I know it was her. I later confirmed she lived in that area. She and her attorney could have argued that it was her sister or daughter or cousin or whatever. So I just honestly answered all the questions during the deposition. Many I could not answer because I did not see her immediately after the accident. I could, however, honestly say that I thought she had a good prognosis and was likely to recover fully. BTW, it is not unusual for patients seeking compensation through some legal process to exaggerate the degree of their injuries. Everybody involved in the process understands this. It is however incumbent upon the patients to maintain their act in a believable fashion. No doctor but a funny story from work a couple years ago. Guy calls in sick for around 8 days. Says on the phone he is really sick. Comes back to work the next week. Tanned as duck. This dude hands a medical slip to the manager written in Spanish. On the slip there is an official seal from some random Cuban clinic. Guy walks over to me with a grin on his face saying, "Yeah, I'm probably fired." He was fired. Supervisor at a place I used to work called out sick. Came in the next day with a tan line right across the middle of his forehead from golfing in the sun all day. No one said a damn word. I told them I had to leave town because I had family members coming in last minute. I got written up. I should have taken up golfing. I've had a boss let people he golfed with come in late because they made the tee time reserve months ago, but right up my mate because his kid missed the bus. Moral of the story is I agree you definitely should take up golfing. Not a doctor but a nurse once had a patient having a seizure. The other a nurse and I knew she was faking it. He said as much. She suddenly stopped seizing. Miraculously. Looked straight at him and yelled, "Shut up, fat boy." He and I laughed so hard. The other nurse, was referred to as such. Fat boy. For few months after that. At least she wasn't having a seizure. Edit. Spelling and clarification. Calm at its seizure girl. Reduce the calamity that is thy memories. My mom was an emergency room nurse. Years ago they brought a prisoner from the local pen in who seemed to be unconscious. The guards were suspicious that he was faking it. They checked his vitals and everything seemed to be okay. The attending doctor tried poking him in the foot with something pointy. Nothing. Then he got an idea. They took a rubber hose and inserted it in the back of his throat as if they were intubating him. That did the trick. He sat up very quickly, coughing and gagging. Edit. Yes. Sternum rub. Got it. There's an even easier way. Just take their hand, hold it over their face, and drop their hand. If they're truly unconscious, or drunk, or very out of it etc., they'll smack themselves in the face. If they are conscious, they will always do something to lessen the hit, like make their hand land to the side, or they turn their hand and hit somewhere they think it won't hurt, etc. Edit. Okay, so apparently, you shouldn't do this. Don't do this, guys. Edit 2. Seriously, don't do this. It's bad. Works, but some other redditors have mentioned that you can give them a black eye if you do this too carelessly and they're actually unconscious. Sorta along the same idea. Working at a pharmacy we saw a guy come in to try and get a refill on some pain meds that had no refill. After pleading that his ear really hurt, we told him again we couldn't refill it. One of the other employees saw his step into a side hallway and take a pencil and jam it forcefully into his ear repeatedly, drawing blood. He calmly left and went to the ear. He came back a few hours later with a prescription for pain meds. It amazes me that people will risk permanent deafness for a fix. Edit. Yes, I get it. I've never been addicted to drugs. Stop bringing it up. You're like an broken record. My brother was an EMT for 2 years and he told me this. People will try to use the ambulance as a means for transportation from Fulton to Oswego, because the hospital is in Oswego, by faking seizures. Sometimes when the head EMT guy was feeling fun and knew that the person was faking, he'd say something like, "Man, it's weird that he's having seizures but not peeing himself." Apparently the person would kind of snap out of it for a second, weigh up the repercussions, then either pee themselves or stop faking. I thought that was hilarious. We had a family calling for a Medicab, a cab paid for by income-based insurance, from somewhere out in the sticks to our in a college town. Every few weeks or so, the mom would be seen for some ailment or the other, and the rest of the family would go to Walmart, go to the mall, do all their in-town errands. She was basically faking an emergency illness every few weeks so they wouldn't have to pay for a cab to get their shopping done. How in the hell is doing that worth the ambulance bills? That must be the most expensive mode of transportation you could possibly choose. I rode in one for less than 7 minutes and I received a bill in the mail over $1,000 a few weeks later. 4th year medical student on my rotation and a trauma came in from a woman that they had been arrested. During the drive the patient banged her head 4 times against the window of the police car and then went unresponsive. She came to us with a bruise over her forehead and unresponsive. We all smelled BS, but the patient was a great actor. Didn't even flinch during the digital rectal exam, which is standard for all patients that come in through the trauma bay, though some of the nurses said that they caught her peeking at us when we'd leave the room. We ended up getting a CT scan, which was normal, and was even considering intubating her to secure her airway when our attending finally walked over to her, opened her eyelids and held them open while telling her to wake up. Finally she started fighting to close her eyes and the jig was up. The doctor called her out and she proceeded to start screaming at us. She was much more pleasant when she was pretending to have a brain injury. Why is the digital rectal exam standard for all trauma patients? Assessing for rectal tone can give insight into spinal cord neurological injuries. Presence of blood in the rectum could indicate GI pelvic trauma. Truthfully, recent studies have debated its usefulness and reliability, especially given the potential for making a traumatic situation more traumatic for a patient. But my institution still does it. I'm not a doctor but a nurse. There was a geriatric patient taking advantage of the call bell. Because she was an attention seeker, she always needed really basic things to get done for her because she thought the place was a hotel. It was a rehabilitation ward, and we should try to motivate patients to do as much for themselves as possible. She would ring the bell for reasons like please lift the blanket up for me or please pass me my phone or please feed me and claimed that her hands didn't work. I caught her several times lifting herself off the bed with her hands, grabbing her phone when it rang. You get the gist. After days of saying no and that she needs to start doing things for herself, she grew more and more frustrated. Eventually she snapped, grabbed me by my collar, shook me aggressively and yelled, "What don't you understand about the fact that my hands don't work?" I didn't know what to tell her. I just looked at her and blinked as she slowly released her death grip off me. I guess I healed her hands. Praise the Lord. 1 upvote equals 1 prayer for an old lady's arthritis. More like arthritis. Grabbed me by my collar and shook me aggressively and yelled, "What don't you understand about the fact that my hands don't work?" This is comedy gold. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.